Here you see an evidence of this operation which homeopathy always tends to bring about. The malarial state is now brought into observation for the purpose of cure. It cannot be cured when complicated, for the remedy cannot be clear that will be similar enough to wipe them out. Complicated అయితే. The malarial state is now brought into observation for the purpose of cure. It cannot be cured when complicated, for the remedy cannot clear that will be similar enough to wipe them out. The first prescription antidotes the drug and liberates the patient from the drug disease, and then you see the most acute or last appearing natural disease which comes back first. This is in accordance with the fixed law. The last miasm or the last symptoms that have been made to disappear will be the first to return and go away to appear no more. The malarial cases which are being suppressed with anti-malarial treatment, even though they are temporarily suppressed, for a complete cure of malaria, when we start a homeopathic treatment according to the similar remedies, with similar remedies, what happens? First of all, the person may get one more attack of malaria. Normally, when the recurrence of malaria is there after starting the treatment, then only definitely there will be improvement. Otherwise, the condition gets complicated slowly. When there is no recurrence, a continuous suppression is there. For example, he suffered already with 6 or 7 attacks, and already 6 or 7 times he took the treatment, and 6 7 times it was suppressed. What happens? It forms itself as a small miasm. So it gets complicated in the constitution. Slowly, it, to which state it leads, that was completely explained by Master E.K. only. Chronic malarial suppression or chronic suppression of malaria will lead to tubercular miasm. Basing upon this only, tuberculum, the drug tuberculum is also considered as the chronic remedy for China. In some cases of China, tuberculum works as a chronic remedy after getting some improvement. So when the person starts homeo treatment, what happens? The suppressed that miasm which is there in the constitution, which formed as a miasm in the constitution, that will be neutralized. The drug action, what happened due to this strong suppression, it has formed as a drug disease in that person, which led to miasm. That has led to a miasm. So after administering the remedy, that drug disease will be neutralized and that miasm will break. Automatically the person gets the attack. Sometimes it will be a bit more severe when compared to previous attacks. And once that antidote, that the suppression is being neutralized, the attack which the person gets may be a more forcible and with more force, or it will be more, the attack will be more stronger when compared to previous attacks. Even then, if we treat successfully with the indicated similar remedy, slowly the person gets cured. When once it is completely eradicated, there will be no recurrence. That has been made to disappear will be the first to return and go away to appear no more. In the 36th aphorism, another thought comes up. Thus, non-homeopathic treatment, which is not violent, leaves the chronic disease unaltered. Non-homeopathic treatment. When that treatment is being done with not very strong medicine, what happens? The natural disease will be like that only. Even after the treatment, there will be some suppression or some palliation. After that, the original disease, the state of original disease will be the same. To suppress, there is required a state of violence to be brought about upon the body. One must do violence to the economy by enormous dosing, tremendous physic, much sweating, bloodletting, etc., such as was done in olden times. Okay. Because previous to the invention of Hahnemann, these methods were there. To suppress, there is required a state of violence to be brought about upon the body. One must do violence to the economy by enormous dosing, tremendous physic, much sweating, bloodletting, etc., such as was done in olden days. Such a treatment tends to subdue or suppress disease for the time being, but when the violence has subsided and the rough treatment is removed, then the symptoms come back, but in a more disturbed state than before. When this type of violent treatment, when it is over, what happens? The original condition will reappear with more disturbed condition. For example, you all know, you might have read already in this Hahnemann's Organon and also philosophy. Bloodletting was there. For example, when a person was having more rush of blood to the head, they used to apply leeches to suck the blood, to suck the extra blood. And also for a part which has received the injury with septic, to prevent septic condition, it was dipped in tar. So that type of horrible treatments were there. మరుగుతున్న తారలో ముంచారు, సెప్టిక్ అవ్వకుండా ఉన్నాయి. సెప్టిక్ సరే దేవుడు తోలు లేచిపోతుంది. ఫిట్స్లో, ఎపిలెప్సీలో కాల్చి చుట్ట కాల్చి ఇక్కడ ఐబ్రో దగ్గర పెట్టడం, అలాంటి మెథడ్స్ అన్ని చేస్తూ ఉంటాం. జిల్లాలో ఒకప్పుడు చాలా అంటే తగ్గేది చాలా ఉంది. జాండీస్కి ఒకసారి వచ్చింది. జాండీస్కి చాలా వైలెంట్గా వచ్చింది, చాలా విరులెంట్, విపరీతంగా ఒక ఎపిడమిక్ లాగా వచ్చింది జాండీస్ అనే చోట్ల. వస్తే చాలా చోట్ల అటు ముఖ్యంగా అటు కృష్ణా గుంటూరు డిస్ట్రిక్ట్, ప్రకాశం డిస్ట్రిక్ట్లో ఈ రిస్ట్ దగ్గర కాల్చేవారు. ఒక వాచిలాగా ఒక ముద్ర వేసేవారు, దాంతో జాండీస్ తగ్గుతుందని. అసలు ఈ పుండు తగ్గడానికి చాలా టైం. The more violent the drug disease that can be established upon the body, the greater the changes in the chronic disease. Violent treatment alters the nature of the chronic diseases. A new and more intense disease suspends a prior dissimilar one existing in the body. Similarly, just so long as the effect of quinine continues, so long will it suppress and hold in abeyance the disease to which it is dissimilar. Quinine is capable of engrafting upon the economy its own disease form, which will last for years and may not stop until it has been antidoted by a medicine similar to its symptoms. Quinine వాడితే మలేరియాలో వాడేటువంటి మెయిన్ రెమెడీ అదే కదా, దాని తాలూకు బ్రాంచెస్ ఇవన్నీ వాడుతూ ఉంటారు. అంచేత ఇట్ లీవ్స్ ఇట్స్ drug disease as a chronic disease upon the patient, upon the economy of the patient, unless it gets neutralized. What happens when it is not being neutralized? What happens? Whenever the person gets affected with any types of acute diseases, the response for the medicines will be very, very meager. Normally, when it is expected to work very well and in a prompt way, that will not be there. Unless the drug disease which is formed with quinine, unless it is being neutralized, this effect will be very less. Chronic suppression of malaria leads to tuberculosis. But if it is antidoted, the malarial disease which it suppressed will appear in its original form, and the patient will say, these are just the symptoms I had in the first place when I was cured by the late doctor. So and so, he cured me with Peruvian bark. So after neutralizing, after antidoting the bad effects of quinine, he gets the same attack, original malarial attack. Then he says, so doctor has cured with Peruvian bark. All these years I did not get. Again I started getting. This story is so common that any homeopathic physician who has been doing sound prescribing for years has lots of records of just such cases. దీన్ని బట్టే జనంలో ఒక సెయింగ్ ఉంది, హోమియోపతి వాడితే పాతవన్నీ బయటికి తీసుకొస్తున్నాము బాబోయ్ అంటారు. ఎప్పుడెప్పుడవో బయటికి లాగుతుందంటారు. లాగాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటే లాగుతుంది, మరి అవి సప్రెస్ అయి ఉంటేను. జనరల్లీ many people think that by using homeopathy, the long ago diseases also will come back. So it should be very careful to use homeopathy. Many people, they will be having this type of opinion. But if the suppression of those diseases which were there previously, if it is the cause for the present crisis, then inevitable they should reappear and they should be cured. Unless that happens, the present crisis also will not be cured at all. The malaria was subdued only because the quinine was capable of producing a more violent disease than malaria. Arsenicum is capable of doing the same thing. It can engraft upon the economy a dangerous disease that will result in very serious conditions because the arsenicum will complicate itself with sora. Arsenic wrong misuse అయినా లేకపోతే ఆర్సెనిక్ క్రూడ్ ఆర్సెనిక్ వాడుతూ ఉంటారు. పాషాణం, నేటివ్ మెడిసిన్స్లో పాషాణంతో తయారు చేసిన మందులు ఇస్తూ ఉంటారు. వాటిల్లో కూడా ఈ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ వస్తుంటాయి. In some cases we have a complexity of horrible things, like one built upon another, and when this is so, in treating them, the last group which was removed will appear first, which shows that the remedy has done its work, and we then go on to the next and so on. The different groups sometimes appeared one after another in distant form. లేటెస్ట్గా వచ్చి సప్రెస్ అయినటువంటివన్నీ కూడా మళ్ళీ కనిపిస్తూ ఉంటాయి. అలా స్లోగా ఉదయం తర్వాత ఎలాగ బిల్డప్ అయిందో, అందుకే దానికి మనకి రివర్స్ ఆర్డర్ ఆఫ్ ది అపియరెన్స్ ఆఫ్ సింప్టమ్స్ అని చెప్పిన దానికి. దే మస్ట్ డిసపియర్ ఇన్ ది రివర్స్ ఆర్డర్ ఆఫ్ దేర్ కమింగ్, as if put on in layers, one piled upon another. From all this we see how it is possible for two different diseases to occupy, as it were, two different corners of the same economy, one manifesting itself while other is subdued. We also see how they may exist in a state of complexity. In the first instance, they do not combine. In the other, they do and become complex. We also see the propriety and use of observing what treatment has been administered to the patient. It is not always possible to do this, and it is impossible to know whether each one of these drugs has established its own disease. Many times it will be there like this, but not always. Not every drug that is administered is capable of establishing a disease. It is always prudent when symptoms are only partially developed and when the drug which caused the suppression of symptoms is known, to include the antidotal relation to the drug with the rest of the symptoms, that is to say, select a drug which has a well-known antidotal relation to the drug that caused the suppression of the symptoms, providing it is all the most similar of all drugs to the few symptoms that are present. Only with which remedy, with the remedies which were administered, with which of the remedies the condition has become like this, that we should know. And what are the antidotal symptoms to antidotal remedies to that disease, that drug, that also we should know. Then it will be very easy. For example, a patient has been horribly treated with steroids. Steroids should be used very carefully, and they should not be used for a very, very long time. Sometimes the patients will go to the doctor. They will prescribe steroids for severe pains, arthritic pains, and definitely they will advise to come, approach them to change the treatment. But when some patients, because of laziness or because of ignorance, they will not go. Even for 2 or 3 years, they will be continuing steroids like that. In that, what happens? No doctor can do anything. When they approach the doctor, they will slowly reduce the steroids and also they will tell the alternative. But when they do not approach, what they can do? In that cases, the dangerous conditions, they should be first neutralized. While neutralizing, the patient may get the original symptoms with more severity that he should bear. In first instance only, we should explain. This is very dangerous. You are using like this. Slowly you have to reduce. Even though you get more pains, you have to reduce. It is inevitable. Definitely you will get some improvement in the beginning, but slowly after getting the remedies getting antidoted, then the condition will become better, and definitely you will get more improvement after some time, but not magically. Recently, there is one IBS case, irritable bowel syndrome, horrible case. Previously, one of their relatives, they came to us. Without using allopathy, they came. With only 1 or 2 doses of bacillum, he was completely cured. Later, it did not relapse. But the present patient who came, he was on steroid treatment for more than 8 to 9 months. But now he got a state that the steroids also are not working for him. No remedies are working, steroids are also not working. He became very lean, emaciated, much bleeding with stool daily. There is much weakness. We started giving bacillum 30 daily doses. For 1 or 2 days, he got good improvement. Later, we gave Mercosur. He got good improvement, but the improvement is not standing. He is not getting improvement. For 10 days or 2 weeks, we tried. Again, at present, he started using steroids. Not every drug that is administered is capable of establishing a disease. It is always prudent, and symptoms are only partially developed. And when the drug which caused the suppression of symptoms is known to include the antidotal relation to the drug with the rest of the symptoms, that is to say, select a remedy which has a well-known antidotal relation to the drug that caused the suppression of the symptoms, providing it is also the most similar of all drugs to the few symptoms that are present. In that, in that way, we make as much of similitude as possible. The similar remedy is most likely of all others to, to antidote the drug. So it is always safe to select the similar remedy, that is homeopathic remedy, that itself will antidote. If fortunately, if a remedy, correct remedy is indicated to the patient in exactly similar way, that itself will antidote. We need not search for a exact antidote. The similar remedy is most likely of all others to antidote that drug. Do not be led aside to administer right way the drug that caused the trouble. The principle of similia is first. Totally different, however, is the result when two similar diseases meet together in the organism. That is to say, when to the disease already present in a stronger similar one is added. In such cases, we see how a cure can be effected by the operations of nature, and we get a lesson as to how man ought to cure. Then a real conjunction takes place, a union, as it were, a marriage, which results in the disappearance of old things and new things come and exist in a state of order. Lesser ratings of Kant now. We have to start the chapter, the simillimum. The simillimum. I had supposed that this question has been settled, but it seems I am not informed, as many are saying the only thing necessary is to find the name of an agent capable of causing similar symptoms on the healthy, and the simillimum is that agent. I cannot accept that as the teaching of the master. These perverters of truth claim that the self-same agent will cure in any dose or any potency. My statement is that simillimum, the curative power of our force, is not essentially the curative drug. The simillimum may be found in aconite 200, where aconite 3x has failed. Then aconite is the curative agent, but not the simillimum. But aconite 200 is the simillimum. When aconite tincture cures and cures permanently, I believe it does. It does so because it is the simillimum. I have recently seen arsenicum 200 fail in a case so clearly indicating arsenic that a trio could not fail to see it, and the same 200 is known to be genuine and had for years served well. Already which 200 potency which he is having, it was genuine. It was working promptly. But in this case, it did not work. The 10M cured promptly. The remedy was arsenicum, but the similibum was arsenicum tannum. So the potency, along with the potency, it should be similar, not only the remedy. No doubt here arsenicum is similar, but arsenicum tannum is similar to this particular patient. I have seen this same arsenic tannum cure when the 3x, 6x, 30, 60 and 200 had failed. Some people they will having fear. They will be having fear to administer higher potencies. No, arsenicum tannum should not be given. It's very dangerous drug. They will say. You can give you arsenicum itself is a very dangerous drug. What are you thinking? You should not give. Some people they will tell. You can give arsenic 200, say if it is needed. You should not give arsenic 10m or 50m. Because of the name and the source of the remedy, they will think of like that. But arsenicum is, when indicated, is a very wonderful remedy, very life-saving remedy. Unless arsenicum is given in that particular case, no remedy will replace. Only arsenicum will save the case. No other remedy will save the case, except arsenic. We have seen some cases. But when arsenic, if it is needed in 10m or 50m potency also, we have to give. In one case, in chronic, horrible eczema case, one person, he was having eczema for the last 40 to 45 years. Much eczema, very thick eczema to both legs. Slowly after 30 or 40 years, he started getting, he did not use any strong medicines for eczema, only he was using some medicines luckily. So his system was not affected, his constitution was not affected. But after 30 or 40 years, his constitution started getting affected. Basically, he was arsenic in his constitution. So Master E.K. has given arsenicum 10m, one dose for him. He got first improvement in the constitutional problems which he started getting. Constitution started getting some symptoms. That was cured. In the first instance, naturally, there was an aggravation of eczema. But there was much improvement after giving arsenicum 10m. For that person, almost for every 1.5 year, I remember for 1.5 year or so, Master was giving arsenic 10m one dose. For 5 or 6 times he gave. Till his last breath, that person, he did not get any bad effects, no sugar, no BP. He lived 77 or 78 years. But that eczema patch was like that, not so thick. When he came to Master, it was very thick. That thickness was cured, but it was there. One dose of 50m also he has given, I remember. అది ఎగ్జిమాలో చాలా డేంజరస్ ఎగ్జిమా అది ఒక పట్టణంలో అది మామూలు ఎగ్జిమా కాదు. ఆ అమ్మాయికి అంటే ఎగ్జిమా రావడం వల్ల మిగతా సిస్టమ్స్ ఎఫెక్ట్ కావు, కానీ ఎగ్జిమా సరిగా ట్రీట్ కాకపోతే స్లోగా సమ్ ఇయర్స్ తర్వాత వాళ్ళకి కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ ఇది ఎఫెక్ట్ అవుతుంది. అది జాగ్రత్తగా చూసుకోవాలి. ఆ అమ్మాయికి తగ్గిపోయింది తర్వాత. అంటే మొదట్లో స్టెరాయిడ్స్ వాడింది అమ్మాయి. స్టెరాయిడ్స్ వాడితే చాలా, ఆ స్టెరాయిడ్స్ విత్డ్రా చేయించడం మొదలుపెట్టేది చాలా సఫర్ విపరీతంగా. ఎటోపిక్ డెర్మటైటిస్ కేసు. ఎటోపిక్ డెర్మటైటిస్ అంటే అసలు హారిబుల్, అసలు చాలా సఫర్ అయిపోయింది. అంటే లక్కీగా ఏంటంటే అమ్మాయికి బాడీ అంతా రాలే, ఇదంతా వచ్చింది బాగా, ఇక్కడంతా వచ్చేసింది. హెడ్కి అసలు మెయిన్గా మన దగ్గర ట్రీట్మెంట్కి వచ్చింది అమ్మాయికి బాల్డ్ హెడ్ కోసం. అది ఉందే కుర్చీ, బాల్డ్ హెడ్ కోసం అమ్మాయి ట్రీట్మెంట్ వచ్చింది. మొత్తం ఇదంతా కూడా స్మూత్గా అయిపోయింది, అసలు మొత్తం గుర్తంతా ఊడిపోయి అయిపోయి ఎక్కడ వాళ్ళు అక్కడ అంతా కూడా ఆ కంట్రీలో కూడా అన్ని రకాల ట్రీట్మెంట్స్ ట్రై చేస్తారు. దానికోసం ట్రీట్మెంట్కి వచ్చినట్టు కేసం తల వస్తుంటే అటోపిక్ డర్మటైటిస్ ఉంది, దానికోసం స్టెరాయిడ్స్ కూడా వాడతాం. అవి నెమ్మదిగా ముందు ఇక్కడికి రాగానే ఇక్కడ ఉంటావు కదా కొనాలంటే తగ్గే వరకు ఇక్కడ ఉంటాను, ఇది ఉంటావు బాగా ఇదయ్యే వరకు ఆ డిప్రెషన్ కాదు, ఇక్కడే లోకలే. అయితే అమ్మాయికి ట్రీట్మెంట్ ఇచ్చిన తర్వాత ఆయన మీ కాలేజేనా? రిటైర్ అయిపోయారు. ఇక్కడికి రాలేకపోయింది. ఆ స్టెరాయిడ్స్ విత్డ్రా చేసేప్పుడు అయితే చాలా సఫర్ అయింది. 2 సార్లు నేనే ఇంటికి వెళ్ళి చూడాల్సి వచ్చింది. సరే తగ్గింది బాగా, కంప్లీట్గా అసలు కంప్లీట్ హెయిర్ నార్మల్గా వచ్చింది, లాంగ్ హెయిర్ కూడా వచ్చింది. వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఇంక స్టెరాయిడ్స్ కూడా బాగా విత్డ్రా చేసి ఓన్లీ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ స్టెరాయిడ్ మెడిసిన్స్ మాత్రం వాడుతూ నెమ్మదిగా నేను కూడా చాలా వరకు క్లియర్ అయిపోయాను. ఆ అమ్మాయికి ఆర్సనిక్ కాదు, ఫస్ట్లో అమ్మాయికి రోజ్ స్టాక్స్ అనుకుంటా వేసాం. రోజ్ స్టాక్స్ ఆర్సనిక్ కూడా మధ్యలో వేసాం, కానీ మెయిన్గా పడిన రోజ్ స్టాక్స్, తర్వాత మెర్క్సాల్ అనుకుంటా, మెర్క్సాల్ తర్వాత సోర్ణం అనుకుంటా. ఇప్పటికి ట్రీట్మెంట్ అయిపోయి అక్కడికి వెళ్ళిపోయి కూడా అమ్మాయి ఇప్పుడు 10 years అంత బాగా 8 years. ట్రోపిక్ డర్మటైటిస్ అసలు మహా డేంజరస్ అండ్ మోస్ట్ స్టబ్బర్న్. ఇదో పట్టణం తగ్గితే అవదు, చాలా సఫర్ అవుతారు. ఫస్ట్ వచ్చినప్పుడు అలాగే వచ్చింది. Then the stimulation must be the curative power and not the name of any given drug. I may conclude that arsenic is the remedy and the case is not cured. I must next choose a suitable potency and as suitably refrain from its repetition. The smallest part of the conclusion has been wrought when the name of the curative agent has been decided. I admit it is seldom necessary to be so exclusive in finding the curative power, but it does sometimes occur. I am more than convinced. A friendly doctor said to me a few days ago in my office that he was curing a case of psoriasis with arsenicum 3x. 3x. సాధారణంగా 30 కన్నా తక్కువ వాడకూడదు, 6 కొన్ని కేసుల్లో వాడాల్సిన, అంతకన్నా తక్కువలో అంత అడ్వైజబుల్ కాదు. He stated that the patient had been taking it off and on for a year, and that when he stopped the medicine, the disease seemed to come back. Nothing can be learned about such a case as there was no clear statement of the facts in the case. But it is much more satisfactory to use a very high attenuation of any drug believed to represent the curative powers of a single dose. It is the safest and surest way to avoid a mistake. If the remedy acts, it is so permanent and almost sure to be single. If it does not act, there is no harm done and a lower potency may be selected. If a lower potency is selected and repeated as often has to be, the overaction spoils the case and sometimes precludes the possibility of a cure. If the remedy is homeopathic to a given totality, a single dose very high may cure the whole case. If, however, it seems necessary to repeat and the disease only disappears while the remedy is being repeated, the selection is a bad and one had better be changed. Selection bad అయితే వెంటనే చేంజ్ చేయాలి. అదే కనుక రెమెడీ అయ్యండి, ఆ రెమెడీ పొటెన్సీ చాలా అవుతుంది, హయ్యర్ పొటెన్సీ ఇస్తే డెఫినెట్గా అది క్యూర్ అవుతుంది. This knowledge we gain while using a high potency if a given case leads us to slowly but surely in the way of success. It is a grand mistake to fly to a lower power because the high has failed to act, and it may be tried as a manner of convincing man of his own weakness. Now the lesser writings of Hahnemann. Plans for eradicating a malignant fever. That chapter we are reading. If a clergyman is wanted for any of the patient, his visit must be paid in the presence of the physician, and the same formalities must be gone through as when the latter makes his visit, namely, the passage must be well aired before the bed containing the patient is pushed through the trap door. The physician instructs him how near and in what manner he may approach the patient. By incautiously approaching the beds of such patients, I have frequently seen the most promising young clergymen infected and die. When a patient dies, he must be immediately pushed through on his bed into the passage and left there until the physician has convinced himself of the disease. The corpse is then to be covered with the straw and carried out on his bed into the courtyard or disease house, where he is to, dead house, where he is to be put, along with the clothes in which he died, into a coffin well stuffed with straw. The corpse should be covered with straw, and if in the presence of the physician and clergyman, conveyed to the churchyard in silence. The grave should be 4 feet in depth. అది కూడా ఇచ్చాడు. డెప్త్ అంత డెప్త్ ఉండాలి. And the coffin should rest upon a layer of fagots and straw piled up on the top of it up to the level of the top of the grave. After the lapse of 3 years in this manner, the grave should either to be covered over with earth, or still better, the straw ignited and the miasmatic virus consumed along with the corpse, or at least dried till it is rendered innocuous. This is a precautionary measure that cannot be too forcibly recommended. When a patient recovers so as to be able to be restored to his friends, he should be taken into a clean room, the key of which should be kept by the physician alone, and there put into a bath and well washed over the body, all over the body, not excepting the hair, at first with clean warm water, and then sprinkled all over with vinegar, before being finally dried. He is then to put on the clean clothes which his friends have sent him, and all his and all his old clothes without exception are to be burnt in the courtyard in the presence of the physician, and finally he is to be accompanied home by the physician and surgeon. Too much care cannot be taken to secure the destruction of such things as the paltry love of gain of the nurses induces them to keep them for themselves, in spite of the danger to themselves and others of doing so. Whenever a patient has recovered or died, the wooden close stool he has used must be burnt in the open air, and the pot D chamber broken and the fragments thrown into the fire. After the epidemic, అంటే రికవర్ అయ్యి తర్వాత అన్న అయితే వాడికి, after the epidemic has been subdued, the male attendants should not be dismissed until they have whitewashed the whole of the interior walls of the house, not only the sick ward, but every other room, and the females not until they have thoroughly scrubbed all the floors and the woodwork and all the utensils. The sick ward should then be heated in the early morning as much as possible, at least up to 100 ream, and after this heat has been kept up for 2 hours, all the windows should be opened and kept so till night. అసలు ఎంత అసలు అలాంటి మ్యాలిగ్నెంట్ ఫీవర్స్లో ఎంత ప్రికాషన్ తీసుకోవాలో. Chronic Diseases by Hahnemann. We are reading preface to the 4th volume. Unassisted, the vital force is no match to these hostile powers. It hardly opposes a force equal to the hostile operation, and this indeed with many signs of its own sufferings, which we call morbid symptoms. By its own power, our vital force would never be able to overcome the foe of chronic disease, nor even to conquer transient diseases, without considerable losses inflicted on some parts of the organism if it remained without external aid, without the assistance of the genuine remedies. To give such support is the duty enjoined on the physician's understanding by the preserver of life. As I have said above, our vital force hardly opposes an equal opposition to the foe causing the disease, and yet no enemy can be overcome except by a superior force. Only homeopathic medicine can give this superior power to the invalidated vital force. Invalidated vital force. Of itself, this vital principle, being only an organic vital force intended to preserve an undisturbed health, opposes only a weak resistance to the invading morbific enemy. As the disease grows and increases, it opposes a greater resistance, but at best it is only an equal resistance. With weakly patients, it is not even equal but weaker. This force is neither capable nor destined nor created for an overpowering resistance which will do no harm to itself. But if we physicians are able to present and oppose to this instinctive vital force its morbific agency, as it were magnified through the action of homeopathic medicines, even if It should be enlarged every time only by, yeah, only by medicine. If in this way the image of the morphic foe be magnified to the apprehension of the vital principle through homeopathic medicines, which in a delusive manner simulate the original disease, we gradually cause and compel this instinctive vital force to increase its energies by degrees and to increase them more and more, and at last to such a degree that it becomes far more powerful than the original disease. The consequence of this is that the vital force again becomes sovereign in its domain, can again hold and direct the reams of sanitary progress, which while the apparent increase of the disease caused by homeopathic medicine disappears of itself as soon as we, seeing the preponderance of the restored vital force, that is of the restored health, cease to use these remedies. The fund or the fundamental essence of this spiritual vital principle imparted to us men by the infinitely merciful Creator is incredibly great if we physicians understand how to maintain its integrity in days of health by directing men to a healthy mode of living, and how to invoke and augment in its diseases by purely homeopathic treatment. Clinical Materia Medica by Farrington. Now we are reading Sepia. Sepia also causes yellowish brown spots, itching, redness, vesicles, humidity and rawness, scaling, pustules. The warm room makes the urticaria patient feel comfortable, but the warmth of the bed aggravates the pricking of the skin. Dunham, guided by the tendency to scaling, recommends the drug as an antidote to Rustock's poisoning. Sepia stands well in the treatment of psoriasis, though inferior to arsenic and arsenic hydratum. ఇక్కడ ఒక ఆయనకి ఇస్తున్నాం సెపియా, పెద్ద ఆయన ఒక ఆయనకి బాగా మంచి ఇంప్రూవ్మెంట్ వచ్చింది. సార్ చూపిస్తా సోరియాసిస్కి. These yellowish brown spots have also been removed by Lycopodium, Nux vomica and sulfur. Curare is used by Dr. Baruch of New York. Besides Sepia, Calcarea, Austriarum, Beretta carb and Tellurium have been recommended for ringworm. Beretta carb has never been successful in my hands. Tellurium is useful for ringworm over a great portion of the body in intersecting rings. In scabies, Sepia is indicated after sulfur. When pustules intersperse the each vesicles, Sepia has a marked action on connective tissue, weakening it and thus producing a great variety of symptoms. Thus there is weakness of the joints which give out readily when walking, weakness about the pit of the stomach not relieved by eating, and evidently the result of a sagging down of the viscera. This effect of Sepia may be utilized in cases in which the joints are readily dislocated. Now, taking up the organs seriatim, we find Sepia to have a marked action on the mind. It produces a mental state which is quite characteristic, and which ought to be present when sepia is the remedy. The patient, usually a woman, is low-spirited, sad, and cries readily. This sadness is usually associated with irritability. It will not do to find fault with the sepia woman. At another times, she manifests a condition of perfect indifference. She does not care for her household affairs or even for her own family. This mental state of sepia is to be distinguished from that of pulsatilla, natramur, and causticum. Pulsatilla is without doubt the nearest analog. Like sepia, it develops a state of weeping, anxiety, and ebullition, peevish ill humor, solitude about health, etc. But only the former has the mild, yielding, clinging disposition, seeking consolation. Pulsatilla anamata. There may be moroseness and peevishness or irresolution, but it lacks the angry irritability and the cool indifference of the latter. Cool indifference. Natrum uriaticum is complementary to sepia. They agree in causing weeping mood, depression of spirits, persistent recalling of past unpleasantness, irritability, indifference, loss of memory, and alternation of mental states. The former has prominently worse from consolation. Natrum murlo. Clinically, we may say the same for sepia. Both remedies too have ailments aggravated by vexation or anger. The two are evidently similar in causing weak and irritable nerves, but their complement relation consists in the fact that sepia causes more vascular erethism. Hence, it is that under sepia, disturbed feelings induce congestion of the chest and head. Animated conversation causes hot face, and sweats follow excitement. In natrum, or the symptoms point more to nervous excitement or weakness alone. Hence, emotions induce headache and drawing up of the spine, and unpleasant thoughts cause sadness, paralytic weakness, or irritability without ebullition. If hypochondriacal, it is a state of melancholy from mental depression caused by inert bowels, while in sepia the same state depends also upon portal spaces and therefore is more persistent and associated with more irritable temper. Natramur may be called for when the mental state depends upon the uterine disease or menstrual irregularity, but this will be only a prolapse, never the uterine engorgement of sepia. The difference of natramur is born of hopelessness and mental languor, while that of sepia includes an undistinguished aversion to those nearest and naturally dearest. Causticum induces sadness, especially before the menses. The face is yellow, but the anxiety is more a timid, fearful state. She is full of forebodings. She dreads the possibility of accidents or to herself and others. Lilium tigrinum stands very near to sepia. It affects the circulation, particularly the venous blood, and has reflux symptoms from uterine and ovarian irritation. There are nervous irritability, desire to to be busy, yet cannot do much, hurried manner. Depressed, full of apprehension of incurable disease, of accidents, etc. Feels that she will go crazy, weeping mood. Both remedies suit the weakened system, especially that of the female, fearful about one's health, hurried, nervous, fidgety, so nervous that the least excitement causes cold, clammy hands, palpitation, etc. In both, the cause of debility seems to be a relaxation of the ligamentous structures, serous sacs and veins. The first two account for the empty, gone feelings, weak knees, even crackling in lilium from deficient synovial fluid, prolapses, etc. The last explains the readiness to portal stagnation, sepia, fullness of the chest, heart, and the veins of the extremities. There is, however, the essential difference in this that the delirium patient finds relief in diverting her mind by busying herself, while the sepia patient has many nervous symptoms relieved by violent exercise. It is in the former case a sexual erethism which is thus relieved. In the latter, relief is general by favoring venous circulation, nervous erethism being but slight and being associated with lessened venereal passion and aversion to coitus. Moreover, Lilium has a marked remission of its symptoms in the forenoon, while sepia is more apt to find relief during the afternoon. Naxumos Chata in Clark. Naxumos Chata. Myristica fragrans. Myristica officinalis. Nutmeg. Tincture of powdered seeds deprived of the mace. This is the official direction. But it would be well to make a tincture of the nut with a mace, as some symptoms of mace are included. Also, a fresh nut and fresh plant tincture should be prepared and tested. Characteristics. Naxumoscata is one of the many examples of powerfully poisonous and medicinal substances used as common articles of food. మామూలుగా మనం జాజికాయ తాంబూలంలోనూ వాటిలోనూ వేసే జాజికాయ. The nutmeg has a popular repute for putting off the menstrual period or else for bringing it on as a remedy for diarrhea and also for boils. It is the use of ground nutmeg for the purpose that has led to many cases of poisoning and has supplied a large number of symptoms of this schema. Naxumoscata is one of the most profoundly active of psychical remedies in the materia medica, producing states of exhalation resembling hysteria and the mesmeric state with exalted senses and consciousness of double personality. A case reported by Stoneham brings this out. A dark-haired young man ate 2 nutmegs one morning. In the afternoon was exhilarated, able to do more than usual, to argue on any subject. At dinner, mouth dry, great thirst, felt he could not drink enough to quench it. After dinner, had felt strange, as if in a dream, but he joined a small musical party as he had intended. He seemed to be 2 persons, and his real conscious self seemed to be watching his other self playing. అసలైనటువంటి వాడు ఈ పిచ్చి చేష్టలు చేసేవాడిని అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తున్నట్టుగా వాడికి ఫీల్ అవుతున్నాడు. He could not play well and had to desist. He seemed lost, and when spoken to would come to himself with a start, hearing for distant sounds much more acute than usual. A woman who ate several nutmegs with the idea of bringing on abortion has the hallucination that she had 2 heads. ఎవడో చెప్తే అబార్షన్ కోసం తినేసింది. A.P. Williamson records in October 1882 one case of a woman who took grated nutmeg for diarrhea. After second dose of half nutmeg, head felt queer and dizzy. Then head felt large. could not reply to questions, though eyes were open and seemed to understand. Pupils dilated, eyes staring, face pale, respiration labored, semi-conscious and had to be shouted at and relapsed into semi-consciousness. Pulse at first small or rapid, but during unconscious period irregular, fuller and weak. When consciousness first returned, kept hands to her head to prevent it falling off. Was obliged to move her head with her hands, it being too large and heavy for her body. Her chest felt as if in a vice. For some days was unable to use words properly. Frequently obliged to stop in middle of a sentence and change it entirely from not being able to use appropriate words. Exaltation of the senses and sensibilities runs through the remedy. One hypersensitive patient to whom I gave a single dose of Naxumosteta 30 said it seemed to put a coat of cotton wool over her. The senses of sight and touch are exalted in the same way of hearing. The mental disturbance may take all the protean forms of hysteria and even mania. Vanishing of thought. One man had complete loss of memory of his past life and did not recover it for a week. The sensorium is disturbed as much as the mind, and a state of staggering, helpless drunkenness is induced. Connected with this are the sleep symptoms of Naxumosteta, which give the leading keynote of the remedy, drowsiness. Naxumosteta is needed for drowsiness. Naxumosteta is needed for drowsiness more frequently than opium itself. When any complaint causes drowsiness or is accompanied by drowsiness, Naxumosteta must be considered. As if in addition there is chilliness and thirstlessness, Naxumosteta must be given. For Naxumosteta is a chilly medicine aggravated by cold and damp, ameliorated by warmth, with one or two exceptions. Chilliness may be considered the second keynote, but quite an important is the third, dryness. The dryness may be only sensation or it may be acute, it may be actual as well. Dryness of the tongue and throat, dryness of the mouth and tongue, usually but not always without thirst. Tongue so dry, it adheres to the roof of the mouth. Neurotic patients who always awaken with a very dry mouth and tongue. The saliva seems thick like cotton. I cured with Naxumosteta 30 a very bad case of indigestion with acne in a youth who had this symptom. Eyes dry, too dry to close the lids. The skin is dry, and Naxumosteta is suited to people who readily perspire. Another keynote is a tendency to fainting. This is allied to the drowsiness, sudden loss of memory, and vanishing of ideas. Persons who easily faint away from sight of blood from standing as to have a dress tied on, and those who have faintness are fainting during or associated with evacuations, these are likely to want Naxumosteta. One or more of the above conditions will be present in the majority of cases needing Naxumosteta, but there are few remedies which have more of the striking and peculiar symptoms, the value of which Hahnemann was the first to perceive than this remedy. And when these are present, or the well-marked conditions of aggravation and amelioration, they will be sufficient indications independently of those mentioned. Here are some sensations as if drunk, limbs as if floating in the air, forehead as if large again, forehead as if pushed out, as if brain struck against side of head, brain as if loose, objects appear much too large, pain as if a rough body in a eustachian tube, pricking as of electric sparks on cheek, as if wind incarcerated in stomach, కడుపులో గాలి పట్టేసింది, ఎక్కడికి కదలటం లేదని చెబుతూ ఉంటారు కొంతమంది. As if a piece of bacon were in the throat, as if food had formed itself into lumps in stomach, as if a piece of wood stretched across the small of the back were pressing from within out, as if heart would be squeezed off, as if something grasped heart, as if heart were beating in a vacuum, as if it were difficult to move tongue, as if blood were rushed to the heart and then all over the body, as if left shoulder contained lead, as if a string were tied round arm, as if a grasping hand in upper arm, pains as if bruised, sprained, wrenched, as if bones smashed, as if electrified, pressure, throbbing, drawing, burning are all common sensations. The sensitiveness of Naxamostata comes out in the soreness of parts lain on. The use of nutmeg as a condiment has doubtless its origin in the fact that Naxamostata is specifically related to weak digestion. It is indicated in conditions of excessive flatulence and when the smallest excess in eating or drinking sets up indigestion. The domestic use in menstrual irregularities has also a specific foundation. Irregularity is the chief note of the remedy here. Much bearing down pain, blood dark, uterine prolapse and displacements have been remedied by it and threatened abortion warded off. In pregnancy, labor, the puerperal state, convulsions, head jerked forward. It has a large sphere. There is a cough occurring only when warm in bed or aggravated then. In constipation with drowsiness, Naxamostata is as often indicated as opium. ఆ రెండు కాన్స్టిపేషన్ డ్రౌజినెస్ లో కూడా ఓదాకోటి. Faintness during or after stool is a great indication. Naxamostata is also hemorrhoidal and hemorrhagic. Protruding piles, hemorrhage of typhus, fetid flatus, incontinence of urine. The hemorrhages of Naxamostata are dark. All kinds of spasms and convulsions are developed in the proving. Catalepsy, clairvoyant state, answers questions accurately, quite out of her sphere. And on returning to consciousness knows nothing about it. పూనకాల్లాగనమాట. జాక్టిటేషన్ ఆఫ్ మజిల్స్ చూడంటే జాక్టిటేషన్ అనేది జేఏసి టిఐఓఎన్ జాక్టిటేషన్. జేఏసి టిఐఓఎన్. Jocktitation of muscles, chorea, jerks in inner parts in muscles, recovers with a start, paralysis with spasms and trembling of tongue, eyelids, esophagus, locomotor ataxia excited by cold and wet, puffiness, swellings, dropsy of outer parts, buzzing sensation with numbness of hands and feet. These symptoms are aggravated by touch. Pressure ameliorates such symptoms and aggravate others. Lying on parts causes soreness. Riding in carriage causes headache, water brush, backache. Rest ameliorates headache. Aggravated belly ache, backache, rheumatism. Rising head from pillow causes deathly sickness. Lying down aggravates head. Aggravated on side lying on. Stitches in spleen causes bending double. Motion aggravates. Shaking head aggravates. Walking aggravates. Ameliorates palpitation. Many symptoms appear in the morning, drowsy by day, dry mouth aggravated evening and night, diarrhea aggravated night, heat amelioration, hot summer aggravates, summer complaint of children, hot weather causes losing of flesh in brain, heat of bed aggravates or causes cough, warmth of room causes hands to feel as if frozen, warmth ameliorates other symptoms, open air aggravates. Walking against wind causes hoarseness, aggravated by damp wet weather, cold weather, getting wet before a shower, washing. A bath causes check of menstrual flow, aggravation after eating and drinking, after cold drink. Drinking causes dry cough, colic. Drinking beer causes strangury. Brandy causes electrifying effect. Milk causes diarrhea. Alcohol aggravates. Eating a little too much causes headache. Maximostata is suited to children, women, pregnant women, persons with cool, dry skin, who do not easily perspire, weakness of old age, dyspepsia of old people, constitutions with stiff, straight hair rather than crisp and curly, delicate constitutions, hydrogenoid constitution. P.P. Wells says that in brain affections of infantile life, in the stupor, insensibility, and unquerable desire to sleep, whether in idiopathic affections of the brain or in those occurring during cholera infantum, Nux mosquita is one of the most precious remedies in the materia medica. J.C. White gives a striking instance of Nux mosquita headache ameliorated by hard pressure in a man convalescing from a severe gunshot wound of the head. He wanted the nurse to bear her whole weight on her. With the headache was rapid, anxious breathing, as if he could not get air enough, and the wind would be shut off. Nux mosquita always relieved it. The 3x was first given. The 3x was first given, then a higher potency. Causation, fright, mental exertion, suppressed eruption, bath suppressed menses, overeating, milk, bad beer, alcohol. Mind, weeping mood with burning in the eyes and lacrimation. Fickleness with desire, sometimes for one thing, as others for something else. Great inclination to laugh, to make a jest of everything, especially in the open air, sometimes with a stupid look, as if imbecile. Incessant flow of facetious ideas. Everything about him seemed ludicrous, humor, humor grave and gay alternately, mentally excited and exhilarated, facility of arguing. After dining, had felt strange as if in a dream, seemed to be two persons. His real conscious self seemed to be watching his other self playing piano. Could not play well, struck false notes, and was obliged to give it up. Seemed just seemed lost when spoken to, and and would come to himself with a start. Transient loss of memory, but a perfect consciousness of all that I said or did. Surrounding seems changed, fanciful, dreamy images, does not recognize well-known streets. Weakness of memory, loss of memory, entirely lost memory of his past life, hallucination that she had two heads, sense of impending dissolution, besought me piteously not to let her die. slowness of apprehension, dizziness, difficult conception, want of ideas as from absence of mind, vanishing of thoughts in reading, disposition to go to sleep, dullness of senses, thoughtlessness with slowly returning consciousness, dementia and mental alienation, idiocy, mania with odd speeches and ridiculous gestures, delirium with violent vertigo, improper talk, loud tone and voice, and total sleeplessness. The least exertion or mental excitement causes somnolence. Unable to use words promptly, frequently obliged to stop in middle of a sentence and change it entirely from not being able to use appropriate words. So this is for today. And next week, next Sunday, there will be no class. Again on 26th, there will be class. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्याय्येन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वासुदेव वासुदेव वासुदेव